And this week, we've got two really important games happening for the women's national team. These are the final tune-up games before the Olympics, the last two games of the rivalry series against the United States set for Edmonton this week. The first game goes on Wednesday, the second on Saturday, both at 9 p.m. Eastern. Now, we know that Canada lost the first two games against the United States in November by a combined score of 10-2. Here's a look at how the Canadian roster is going to be a little bit different this time around. So joining the roster are some veterans from the Ottawa Charge. We've got forwards Brianne Jenner and Emily Clark. Of course, Clark was rehabbing an off-season injury in November, and Brianne Jenner has had a great start to her season with the Ottawa Charge. Defender Jocelyn Larocque is back in the mix, looking to make her fourth Olympic team. We've also got Anne-Renee Desbiens back between the pipes after some rest in November, and she's joined by Montreal Victoire teammate Nicole Gosling, a rookie on defense. So that means we won't see Vancouver forwards Hannah Miller, whose eligibility status is still up in the air with the IIHF, and we also won't see Sarah Nurse, who's currently on long-term injured reserve. Katie Tabeman and Micah Zandy-Hart are also missing from the November roster on the back end, and NCAA goaltender Eve Gascon will sit these games out too. All right, so we've got the great Cheryl Pounder joining us today. Of course, you see her on TSN, you see her on the PWHL broadcast, and in February, you're going to see her on our CBC Olympics coverage. It's always so great to talk to you, Cheryl. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I love your plaid. I was going to put plaid on myself. Looking forward to all things hockey coming up. I mean, it's going to be an amazing year, 2026, of course. Lots going on, lots of research happening, and loving every minute of it. I mean, every 4 years we get this opportunity to soak it all in and talk about the storyline. So giddy up.
How fun is that? That's awesome. Well, before we get into talking about the 2026 Olympic team, Cheryl, I want to take you a little bit back in time to 2006 when you won Olympic gold in Italy, almost 20 years ago now. First of all, what comes to mind when you think of that team, that experience in Italy? And, you know, for my money, I think that's the best Canadian roster we've ever seen.
I think you're bang on. And it was the greatest team that I've ever been a part of. And that's not taking away from the 2002 team that I played alongside. I mean, there's so many valuable lessons learned in that 2002 year and the adversity that was carried forward with a lot of the returning players in 2006. But I feel like it was a team that recognized that each role needed to be played to its fullest. And I think we had players that were hitting their prime in that 2006 year. You know, you had the selflessness of Vicky Sanahara, who was the glue between, you know, the top line and someone who may play a few minutes. She was just the glue who expressed a value. I had the great Cassie Campbell-Pascal who wore the captaincy and wasn't afraid to push the buttons at the right time. And then, of course, you had the Haley Wickenheisers, the Sherry Pipers of the world. I mean, the list goes on and on, the Danielle Goyettes. And then if you go to the back end, I had one of my besties in Becky Keller. We had a ton of fun back there. Only 5 defenders. It didn't take 6 to that Olympic Winter Games because Carolyn Ouellette played a role of both forward and a D because she was on the power play. Every once in a while, you get just so fortunate to be part of a group that's bigger than yourself. And you don't know how you got there. You know, I think we'd all be GMs and we'd be, you know, be making $1 jillion if we had the special sauce that we could bottle. But to me, we just had it. And yeah, it's just we won together and moment I'll never forget for sure.
Well, fast forward to today, Cheryl, obviously things look quite a bit different when we're talking about how this team is created. Centralization is a thing of the past. And for folks at home who don't know what that is, you know, you'd have all the hopefuls gather together in one place, live together for months, compete against each other. It sounds pretty grueling from what you can attest to that, eh? So that's a thing of the past now with the PWHL. We're only getting to see 4 Team Canada games ahead of February. So PWHL play is obviously, you know, going to be a factor in who makes this team. But how important, Cheryl, are these last 2 games that we're going to see in the rivalry series next week to determining who's on that roster in February?
I think for the players that would be bubble vying for those spots, I think this is a critical time. So yeah, I think it's a pivotal time, obviously coming off of 2 games, you know, where, you know, pretty much the Americans dominated to some degree, especially in game one. And then, of course, in the third period in game number two, I would say that, yeah, I mean, you got to seize your opportunity, but I do think there are a specific group of players that would be fighting for those last roster spots.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about some of those roster battles in a bit, but those first two games, Cheryl, to your point, the United States did dominate, outscoring Canada 10-2.
Yeah.
Of course, that's not the roster that we're going to see in February. Notably, we didn't see Emmerich Smashmeyer or Anne Renee Davian play a single game in goal. So, are you concerned by those performances at all?
I think anytime you see sort of that kind of a score, and consistently a 4-1 and a 6-1, you say to yourself, oh boy, there's some work to do. But in terms of it being the marker of what's going to happen, no, not at all. Because when you get to a short-term competition, and as we've seen with Canada and its experience, they've proven they can win, right? They've proven they can win. And when you get down to a one-game set, between nerves, I think games are played harder. Forechecks are harder. The sticks are a little tighter. So I do think that I don't think this is necessarily a forecast or a foreshadow of what is to come, but I do see, there's holes there, or areas that they need to improve on that they would certainly take away from it. Just like John Morbolewski would say, wow, well, this line really worked for me. I really like it. I'm going to continue to go with that, to the same degree that Canada can say, well, we need work in this area. So, but I don't look at it and go, okay, 10-2, it's over, right? Like it's not. I think when puck drops in Milan, you're talking about a clean slate, fresh start. Because when you're in the pressure cooker like that, anything can happen.
We've really seen two very different strategies, I think, from Canada and the USA just in this quad. I think I wondered too, with somebody like a Caitlin Kramer, who's gotten a decent amount of opportunity in those first two rivalry series games. Like she's getting that opportunity now, but it might be a little too late. Right? And
Yeah.
if we saw her come into the program maybe a year ago or something like that, would it be a different story?
Yeah, and that was sort of my point to that, whereas they would come in, and I remember asking Troy about some of those questions. I think it might have been about Kristen Campbell at one point, just like, when does she get a game?
Yeah.
When are they going to go beyond practice and get, this is more of a development model? And it always felt like Canada really played to win in those games. But I mean, Caitlin Kramer, I still believe has a shot because she's going to both rivalry series. I don't think that you're bringing in a young player like this if you don't think that they're legitimately vying in this moment to these last two games before you're going to meet up, likely and potentially a final in Milan. So I do think that she does have a fair shake at this. I mean, time will tell, but it'll be her opportunity to seize, because to me, she is one of those players that is fighting for one of those last roster spots.
Yeah, and to talk about some of those roster battles, Cheryl, like to me, the most interesting battle is on defense. Obviously, the Canadians are very deep on the back end. You've got a veteran like Jocelyn Larocque looking to go to her fourth Olympics, and then you've got somebody like Chloe Primerano, this talented defender of the future looking to go to her first Olympics, and then you've got somebody like Sophie Jakes who's really popped in the PWHL, but hasn't really been able to carve out that role. With Hockey Canada, and she's not getting that power play time. Does she really have a role on this team? So you were a defender, Cheryl. What kind of mix do you expect to see on this team, and how interesting do you think that battle is?
Now it was much different, right, when I played, because Becky Keller and I, we were stapled to the offensive blue line, right? Like we did not enter the zone. We backed up. We were up against top competition and high hard off the glass, right? So it's so much different. I personally think you have to have a solid mix, because it's not just going to be an offensive free for all in a gold medal game. But certainly you've got, Renata Fast, and you've got Shelton, and you've got Thompson and Ambrose, who've all proven that, these are their spots. You've got Primerano, and you do have Jakes, as you mentioned. And this would be the core that was in the original, the first two games of the rivalry series, and now again in the second leg. Could they be in a situation where a Jocelyn Larocque is part of that third pairing and playing with either one, because they will take 7? Does it give Sophie Jakes an opportunity, or Chloe Primerano, to get some power play minutes, depending on what happens, how it's looking? So I do think that could happen. And then you've got Nicole Gosling that's coming in, right? So, but she would have to be on fire in 2 games in order to be, I think, really heavily considered. But again, I'm not wearing the GM hat here. I'm more taking it from the approach that, okay, she didn't get those first two games. Again, you got Mikey Zandy Hart there. You've got, so it's just going to be interesting. But yeah, the blue line to me is going to be a big piece of the pie because you got to get out to generate offense.
Well, thank you, Cheryl, for making the time to speak with us. I mean, it's fun. It's a fun time. We've got
Oh,
lots of great hockey to talk about. You must be in your glory. So thanks for making a few
no,
minutes for us.
thanks for having me. I am in my glory. I am just so pumped to be in the building. And just watch the best on best hockey. I think it's fantastic. I think all these athletes have grown so much. I think the PWHL has highlighted, the Gardners of the world, the Millers of the world, the Daryl Wattses of the world. And I think that's only going to continue to happen with more evaluation within the PWHL. It's going to make national teams across the board better as different players come, and as Michelle Carvinen's in the league now. I just think it's fantastic, and really excited for the storylines and the passion that only the Olympics really evokes. So pumped.